Hot takes, King of the Hill, let's go. Also plug in my Discord.
You're just a sub. You can't give extra credit.
Well, no, not towards your grade. But you will get credit with me. And those Peggy points add up.
Peggy's not too terrible of a character. I actually find her ego and bad Spanish to be pretty funny. The problem is when the show tries to paint Peggy as being in the right when she's clearly not. I think of all the Peggy takes, this is the one I agree with the most. Peggy really isn't that bad of a character. It's just that in the times in which the episode really insists that she gets her way are not really that enjoyable. The misconception is that there are many Peggy Hill episodes where this is the case. There's not. In fact, Bill of Sales, an episode I reviewed, is a really great Peggy Hill centered episode. So if a character was all that bad, she would have in theory ruined this episode. There is some validity in the statement that she is quote too good at the traits that she has. But ideally, I think that just comes from the show being so realistic that you can attribute a quote Peggy Hill to someone you know in real life. I have quite the amount of Peggy Hill episodes I don't like, but it'd be far from my opinion right now if I were to say that she ruins a lot of the episodes, let alone the entire series.
Come on, eat some dirt.
Let go of my purse!
Huh?
I don't know you!
The show would really benefit in today's climate. It takes a more mature approach over situations unlike recent shows today. In theory, you are correct. To have someone like Hank in today's atmosphere would definitely be interesting. However, I'm still firm in my stance that I would not reboot the show. While it took a more mature approach to situations unlike recent shows today, I don't believe that the show would retain that charm. There's just that certain charm that 90s and 2000 shows have because of the time, because of what it had to prove, because of the stuff that they were allowed and not allowed to do. If anything, I think Bob's Burgers does a really good job at what King of the Hill used to do. Both main characters are really stubborn, set in their ways, really proud of their careers, and do not understand the next generation, but still remain likable in many aspects. And I'm satisfied to at least have a show handle situations like this as tactful as Bob's Burgers done many times. But again, in theory, you would be correct.
Nudity.
I think the show sided with Hank Hill too much and mostly demonized anything Hank didn't agree with to an unreasonable degree. I think you may be right in reflection. While the formula of Hank being up against the odds on things that he either didn't agree on or were actually harmful or both, there are times where it didn't hit or even worse, it didn't age well. The only reason it didn't affect the way I review the show is because it served the bigger purpose that I could take away from the show. Let's take Bobby and Hank's viewpoints of the world. They disagree. These arguments do happen. These disagreements do happen. It's just that the show is centered on Hank, so in many cases, he will get the last laugh. But as an audience member, I knew that even if Hank got the last laugh, I couldn't agree with him, but I can definitely coexist with the ideas that he had. I think the show took some noticeable strides in the other direction too, which should be acknowledged. In the episode Get Your Freak Off, we had Hank at the end take Bobby and his maybe romantic partner Jordan to a more appropriate for their age date, and when seen holding hands, a local Amish called them animals essentially for holding hands, to which Hank slowly saw at the end of the episode that sometimes it's okay to go against the common opinion. It's not the greatest example to age today, but I think it should count.
You have such wonderful memories. Now I can't wait to get old and wrinkly and grow a little hump on my back.
It always bugged me how much they dumbed down Luann in later seasons. She was no genius, but she had basic common sense in the earlier seasons, even making the family confront their smoking habit. It just seems her having to remember her own name was really pushing it. Now, this is a very appropriate, well-timed take, so let's talk about Fun with Jane and Jane, an episode that I covered. In that episode, I make a very big deal out of the fact that Luann, who essentially was starved and abused in a cult pretending to be a friendly sorority house, went back with absolutely no protests. It makes her character look dumb when she's self-aware of the things that harm her and do absolutely nothing to fight against them. Her character has evolved into a plaything in many episodes, when she has had very compelling episodes, especially when her parents were involved. Maybe it's just the unfortunate case that the staff didn't have much for her character beyond those bouts, and thus she was kind of used for the things that people know her to be used for, which is is either her naivety or her beauty. So yes, I do agree, it bugs me as well.
God dang pimp.
King of the Hill never really stood out to me. I was only exposed to it with memes, rooting from the show. But when I tried to watch it, it never really stuck with me. I just found it bland. I love the show especially because it was mundane and boring. And also, to be fair, a lot of people are exposed to a lot of new things because of memes rooting it. I'm sure not many of us were thinking of flex tape as much until the memes started coming out around it. In an atmosphere of many adult shows trying to grab at your attention by being raunchy, edgy, energetic, for a show to sit back and put out great quality episodes and let you judge the show based off of that is commendable. It's definitely the harder route to go because you'll be the only one not screaming to an audience who seems to go where the screaming is heard. There are shows that have screamed louder and have been out for a shorter time than King of the Hill. It's because the show knew what it wanted to be, and when you watched it, you got that. The show stands out because it wanted to steer from the norm and provide a show that delivers commentary and entertainment that you didn't have to not show to your parents or children or brothers or sisters or siblings or anyone under the age of 18.
You wiped your eyes on my tie. That's okay. It's an amazing fabric.
King of the Hill is the only adult cartoon that shows the boring side of adult life, instead of relying on sex, slurs, and shock value to create his comedy or plots. You see, I guess there isn't that many Bob's Burgers fans in the audience. Getting back to that, I saw that this was one of the most voted takes, so it must be agreed on pretty heavily as a hot take. To call it the only cartoon to portray the mundane everyday life aspect well is really throwing dirt on my show Bob's Burgers. And I'm sure there's a lot of other shows that have done it as well, but I'm going with the show that I know that did it the best. Bob's Burgers doesn't rely on the things that you said. It's just that Hank does a better job at being the aloof but standing on his values, blue-collar worker, everyday man aspect better. But not better to the point of making this hot take true in my book. Bob has many fights with his family, the people in his neighborhood, and even strangers that have made for fantastic entertainment because the writing and the way it was handled. It's not a shocking show, it's not raunchy. At most, it's like King of the Hill, where if they do anything that is abnormal for their atmosphere, it's played up to be a big deal. If you like King of the Hill, definitely check out Bob's Burgers because it's retaining a lot of what you and many others would like. And maybe I'd have to do another review on it someday.
Go grate some tofu, you losers! Oh my god! He just threw pepper in their faces! What is he doing?
The final episode was just lazy and rushed. There could have been plenty of ideas used. Bill meets a woman and gets remarried, Hank finally getting promoted to manager at Strickland Propane, or Dale finally realizing that Nancy cheated on him. But no, instead, we reuse the plot from Stress for Success, but make it worse. Considering that I do want to talk about the finale at some point, possibly in a Rise and Fall, I'm not too sure. Here's what I can say here. This is with many finales. They could be so much better, but here, a lot of fans really seem to have a mixed reaction to this. On the surface, it's just another episode that could have been placed anywhere. Bobby essentially wins a meat inspection off, and that leads into, well, them having a cookout. Their last cookout, ooh. I do understand that the show is episodic, but every fandom most likely is going to have a considerable chunk that wants its last episode to answer questions that never really will be answered after that point. So in honor of this, I also want to pick at your 3 scenarios. So, okay, Bill meets a woman and gets remarried. No, I think with the archetype of Bill's character, his high point in his life is just enjoying the fact that he wasn't deceased at his age. He doesn't get a happy ending, and the show goes through lengths to show it. He's not a character that was set to go through trials and tribulations, only to succeed and have a big win at the end, so no. Hank finally getting promoted to manager at Strickland Propane. Sure, I can see this being a one big thing, but definitely not too much within the last episode. I mean, it was a big part of Hank's life. It isn't a large part of King of the Hill. It's not enough to be worthy of being a finale-based episode, but yes, a significant chunk. Ideally, I'd rather much that be tacked on as a bonus to Hank winning in the end to whatever episode they write for it. Lastly, Dale finally realizing that Nancy cheated on him. No, that kind of ruins the whole arc if Dale figured it out. Part of the arc is that she knows what she did and how Dale would react. We don't need to see it nor figure that out ourselves.
I've been pre-approved for a gold card. Who wants ice cream? Oh.
Well, those were the best takes I saw. There were hundreds of these takes combined, and I'd love to get back to this another day. But what other show would you like to see me do a hot takes on? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to read as many as I can. If you like this video, check out my entire King of the Hill playlist. I have a lot of videos on King of the Hill. And also check out my hot takes playlist if you like this type of video format. And until then, special thanks to the patrons of June, and until next time, take care. Alpha out.